Hello everybody, it's Murray from Stewart Paintings. So last week we created this gorgeous tutorial on how to paint a ocean sunset, and I thought why not convert it into teaching you all how to paint this fantastic realistic wave. So let's get into it. Now we're going to use the same colours as before. They are titanium white, cad yellow, matte orange, matte crimson, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, matte iris purple, Prussian blue, burnt umber and matte black. Now you can see me here using chalk, and all I'm doing is, the great thing about chalk is you can remove it, you can go over it, you can just paint over it, so it's perfect if you want to change a painting. So we did the sunset tutorial last week, and I thought why not use the same colours and teach you how to paint a ocean wave. So what we've got the cools on one side and the hots on the other side. We've got cad yellow, matte orange, matte crimson, burnt umber. We've got a titanium white. On the top we've got a cool blue that is pre-mixed, which is cerulean blue and cobalt blue, white and a dab of purple. We've got that cool Irish purple, and we've got matte black. Now all I'm doing here, I'm just mixing some Prussian blue, which is black and blue, with a little bit of more black, a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of yellow and a bit of crimson to create a warm dark shadow tone. So Prussian blue mainly, and all those other tones. And the great thing about chalk, if you have a dry painting, you can move things about, so you can try things and see where things are. So all I was doing previously, where it was a bit sped up, was all I was doing was just measuring a straight horizon, and I was just going to block in. Now we've got our chalk line of our wave. Now the first thing you want to do when creating a wave is you want to create the dark shadow tone. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix Prussian blue, bit of crimson, tiny bit of black, bit of burnt umber, tiny bit of yellow, and we should have that perfect shadow tone. And all we're going to do, we're going to create sort of a barrel effect. So either side of the wave that combs over is going to be very, very dark, and the bit that combs over and comes around the barrel, we're going to use a lighter tone to create the illusion of sunlight coming down from that sun. So all I'm doing, while I've got that dark tone, I'm just going to darken up my corners. This is now going to be the beach, so I'm just going to paint over my signature. Now it's all dry. And we're just going to do the same on the corner on this side, and just gently let the paint run out. And great thing is because my brush is dry and there's hardly any paint on my brush, I can just smear it, and it's almost like colouring in something. I'm just using it like a crayon. So last week we did this fantastic tutorial and we've done all the hard work. So this week it's really easy just to convert that into making a wave. So all we're going to do, we're going to add some crimson and we're going to add some orange. And all I'm going to do is just make a lighter version of a shadow tone and just put in the bit of the wave that curls over. So this is all this bit of the wave that's getting a bit of that sunlight over its back. And obviously it's a bit more shallow because it curls over. And what you do as well, you should get this inner bit, which is the same matching colour where the light shines through. And again, it just creates a more realistic tone, because it just makes your barrel almost of the wave look more 3D. Now obviously if you've watching this from the start and you haven't watched the previous tutorial, if you just go back a week, there is literally a tutorial, I think about a video or two just behind this one, but I'll put it in the description, just in the description box, just so if anyone's just found this video out of the blue, maybe you're in the future and this is in a year's time or something, and you just want to know how to paint the sunset. So everyone else who's been following along weekly, this is a cool blue that we make using cerulean blue, cobalt blue, white and a dab of purple. We're just going to add a little bit more purple to it just so it's really cool. So the reason we use blues and purples is to create shadow tones, but it's still got plenty of white in the mix. So by just creating a light cool blue which has purple and blue in it, so I use cerulean blue and I use cobalt blue, because it's a really good match, because the cerulean blue is more turquoise and the cobalt blue is very cool and dark blue. So just by adding lots of white, a purple, and you can even add a dot of black just to desaturize it, we can create the wash of our wave. So while we've got that colour, we're going to come down and we're going to use the same cool bluey purple to create this sort of carpet bit of the wave that comes up onto our beach, onto the shore. So this is the bit that comes up and it leaves that sort of really nice sort of fluffy foamy outline. So we're just going to use that cool blue to get that. So we're just going to get a lighter tone. We're not going to add as much purple. We're just going to add some white to that. And all we're going to do is just a bit lighter than the previous tone because it hasn't got any purple, hasn't got any black or anything in it. And we're just going to use a lighter tone so you can make cerulean blue, cobalt blue and lots of white to make this tone. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue and lots of white. And all we're doing is either side of the middle, we're just trying to create some highlights. Now the reason we're leaving the outer bits still that cool blue is we're going to try to create the illusion that the sunlight is sort of fading off from the middle. So we want to have the brightest highlights in the middle and we want to have the darkest sort of cooler tones either side because the sun is in the middle, so we want to create the illusion of light below it. So we're going to mix some orange and crimson together to make this really lovely sort of rusty orange colour. So orange and crimson, and all we're going to do is we're going to start putting some highlights now onto the wave and we're going to start building the wave up. Now the wave and trying to match the light is quite difficult, so this is why as I say, I want to try to push you guys and create a bit more advanced tutorials now this is I think my 70th odd video and this is about our 40th odd tutorial. I want to start making them a bit more challenging. So what we're going to do, we're going to create light. So how are we going to do that? We're going to use orange and crimson. So we're going to add a little bit more crimson. So now we've put the really bright highlight. We're just going to put crimson to merge into that dark Prussian blue. And this is all the sort of under bit of the wave that is still very shallow that the light is shining through. So you can see bits of the light coming through the wave because I want to create realism and create a 3D effect. So if we go back to the shadow color, which is Prussian blue, which is blue and black, so add some burnt umber to that mix just to make it really dark. So blue and black and some burnt umber, a little bit of crimson just to make it a little bit hotter. We can use that shadow tone just to blend into the crimson. So the great thing is orange is really bright and crimson is in between, and the Prussian blue and the dark burnt umber is really dark, but it's not quite black. Because it's dark blue, it's really much more realistic. It's not really black. So the great thing is you can jump from orange to crimson into that dark Prussian blue and it creates a realism. Now all I'm doing, I've got hardly any paint on my brush. I've got a dry brush. I'm just creating shadow with that tone underneath the wave. So again, I'm leaving a gap in the middle because in the middle of the wave, that's going to be picking up all the sunlight. So I'm just trying to create a shadow effect around it. And the great thing about the underpainting, because it's from a previous tutorial, it's dry. So when you go over the top in acrylics, you can brighten things up and you can darken areas just by glazing it with a dry, soft brush, hardly any paint, and you can just go over the top and glaze areas, just almost like you were colouring it in with a crayon. You're just going over the top. So all I'm doing here, I'm just trying to create a straight ridge. So I'm going from the Prussian blue back to the crimson because I'm going towards the middle because the middle is going to have the most sunlight. So I'm just trying to create a darker ridge, just as clear definition. But as I go towards the middle, I don't want to make it too dark because obviously it's picking up the sunlight from that glaring sun. So just by adding Prussian blue is just a posh word for blue and black. So cobalt blue and lots of black, not too much black because black is so overpowering, and just a little bit of burnt umber. Now if you mix some orange, some yellow and some plenty of white, we'll get this really lovely peachy tone. So orange, yellow and plenty of white, dab of crimson just to make it a little bit more darker. And all we're going to do is we're just going to figure out where we want things. So the light is going to come over the top of that wave. So think of it like a barrel. It's going to come over the sort of circular area, and all the sort of wash is going to sort of get the highlights. So I'm debating where to do them orange or to do them more realistic. So I think what we'll do is we'll try the orange first, see how it works, and then we'll go back. So I paint seascapes all the time. And even this one, I haven't even got a reference photo. I've got a previous reference photo from a painting I did a while back, and I'm just doing it really out my head. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match the sunlight above. So just using that orange, yellow and white just on the tip of that wave. I'm now going to mix some orange and crimson together because I don't want it to be too of a jump between the bright highlights and the dark crimson. So I'm mixing a bridge tone, which is orange and crimson, just to merge into that highlight. So just like we did with the underpaint, the underneath with the shadow. So look, you can darken areas up just by gently shading it. You could do the exact same thing with the light. So if you want to gently make areas look more brighter, just leave it to dry and then just go over it with a dry brush, barely any paint, and you can just lighten areas up or darken areas. So look, all I'm doing is almost like I'm glazing it. I'm just going over the top, just making certain areas lighter and certain areas darker. So I'm just going to add some crimson to our Prussian blue and a tiny bit of black, a bit of burnt umber, and a bit of that iris purple. Iris purple is just a very cool purple, so it's to make this violet colour. Yeah, so iris purple, iris like an eye, is basically lots of cobalt blue and purple and a dot of black and I think a tiny bit of white, and you get that sort of cool purpley grey sort of colour. That's the top, see the top clouds in the corners? That's iris purple. So it's this lovely cool purple, so just a bit more blue than purple. And we're just going to add some Naples yellow, which all that is, again, it's just a posh way of saying lots and lots of white and a dab of yellow. And all we're going to do is we're going to put some highlights in the middle. So the reason we're putting them in the middle is because the sun is directly in the middle. We want the viewer's eyes to focus directly into our sunset painting. So we want them to focus right down the middle of the composition. So by putting our highlights in the middle and obviously under the sun, not only does it look realistic because you have the light effect, but also it draws the viewer's eyes into the middle. Now just off camera, all I'm doing is just mixing some white and that blue, just to create a lighter shade of blue. And again, it's just to create a lighter highlight, but still plenty of blue, just so it's getting cooler as it goes away towards the edges, and the same in the middle. So I just want the brightest highlights in the middle just to focus on the viewer's eyes. I'm just going to take some bright yellow now, some cad yellow, and I'm going to swap to a flat brush. And all I'm going to do, sorry if it's off screen, I didn't realise how off screen it was when I zoomed in. All I'm going to do is go with a flat brush right up to the ridge of the wave, and I'm just going to come down and again just create a really, really harsh highlight. And same going straight up to the sun. Now the great thing about a flat brush is because it's flat, you can do really easy straight lines, but also you can do this trick. You basically turn it diagonally and just streak the painting downwards, and you can create almost the reflections. So Bob Ross does this all the time. Look, so all I'm doing, look, I'm just screeching it downwards and it creates this chalky reflections, and you can just smudge it, and it really, really good way to create the illusion of light. Now all I've done is just swap back to a round-headed brush. Mixed a tiny bit of orange into the mix, and I'm just going to make a little slightly darker tone, so not as yellow, it's got more, just a little bit more orange in it now. So all I'm doing is going away from that bright yellow into a darker, more orange, because as the light cools it goes more orange and then it goes into crimson. So just add more orange, look, there we go, add a tiny bit of crimson. So if you just think of a colour wheel, so you go from yellow to orange to crimson. So look, and we're doing the exact same technique, we're just sort of glazing it. It's almost like we're colouring it in. Look, I've got hardly any paint. You can wipe it on your clothes like I did on my sleeve, and you can just glaze areas and just make it look like the transition in the light is seamless. So this is all the underpainting, just like we did with the sunset on the previous tutorial. We're just doing the same, we're just building it up. We're doing the underpainting first, and then we'll put the highlights and the shadows over the top. So we add a little bit of yellow to that orange, just a little bit, and we're just going to make the top a little bit brighter, just a little bit smoother, and we're just going to work it back into the paint while it's wet. Same here, a little bit more yellow. The thing was with acrylics, as I've said previously in all the tutorials, sometimes you just got to go over it twice just so you make the colours a bit more vibrant, because they obviously pick up the undercolours. So if you want to make your highlights even more bright, so your yellow's more yellow or your white's more whites, you just got to go and give it 2 coats sometimes. So our sunset and our waves are starting to take shape, so we're now going to build it up. So we're going to get a flat brush, we're going to get some of that lovely sort of cool crimson, and we're going to mix a little bit of orange to it. And as I say, we're just trying to bridge the gap. So if we've got a really bright tone in the yellow, go into the orange, we just want to go back to crimson, and then back to the Prussian blue. So it's just a really simple technique of seeing which areas just need a little bit more dark and a little bit more bright. Now for the far away waves, I'm using that crimsony, orangey and a little bit of burnt umber. I'm using a flat brush, so I'm just mixing it, and the nearer I get to the sun, I'm just going to make the waves a little bit more orange. Now that's just to make, again, to push them further back. And while I've got that orange, I'm just going to do the same technique with the diagonal, where I'm just putting in the chalky paint just to make it look more bright. Yeah, so the closer you get to the sun, you want to be lighter in tone, and the closer you come towards the beach, you want to be darker in tone. So that's why we're using the Prussian blue, and that's why we're using bright oranges and things as we go towards the sun. Now what I'm doing here, I'm just getting some titanium white and a hint of yellow, and I'm just putting a really harsh highlight just on the very tip of my wave, just so it looks like the sun, but it looks a bit comic-y. So again, we're just going to try to work our way through that comic stage by just darkening it up. Now we've put all the highlights in, we're just going to use our shadow tone, which was the Prussian blue and the crimson and the burnt umber, and we're just going to go back and forth, and we're just going to make it darker, and we're just trying to make the transitions more seamless. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just going back and forth, trying to make the shading look more seamless, so you don't notice the transition colours. They just blur and merge into one another. That's the whole point, and that's what creates the realism. So I keep trying to explain it in all these tutorials. It's the colours and the tones that creates the realism, and then when you work on your detail and you get better at drawing and just better in general and create more realistic work, that's when your work will start taking off and it will look more and more realistic and more and more world class. So look, all I'm doing here, I'm using that cool blue just either side of the bright highlights. I'm just making it more splatty just so it looks like more sea foam as that wave comes over. And I'm using that really bright white with a dot of yellow in it just to create a really bright highlight in the middle. So under the sun, as I say, in the middle, that's going to focus the viewer's eyes, but I want that cool blue either side just so it looks like the areas are in the shade more. So that lovely cool blue, I'm going to load my brush up and I'm going to show you how to do sea foam. So I'm going to load my brush up, and all we're going to do is we're going to create zigzags. So I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to go right up and I'm going to create zigzags. So what I'm trying to do, I'm just going to swap to a thinner brush. I'm just trying to diagonally come up and just create sort of almost like electricity, all these sort of little zigzags, sort of imagine a spark. But this is all the sea foam, so I'm going to come right up to the edge and I'm just going to do little zigzags, little dots and bits of splodges, and these are going to be all the sea foam as the wash comes up towards the beach. So our sunset is looking fantastic. All our tones are matching because we've got this lovely underpainting. Now as we add the cool blue and these lovely sort of sea foam. So look, I'm just going more diagonal as I move up and more flat, and I've got less foam as I go towards the wave. So more as it comes towards the beach and less foam as I go towards the big wave. So I'm going up diagonally. And because our tones all match, and because we've got that lovely transition of the sunlight on our water below it, when we now add all this sea foam on the top, That is what is tricking your eye and creating the realism. And because this tone matches our sky, that is what is creating the look of a photograph. It's just the tones. So look, all these areas where you've got that sort of ridge where you have a thing, these are all the froth of that wave as it comes towards the shore. So we're just going to create that by leaving gaps in the underpainting with the dark shadow. It creates the look of texture and creates more 3D look. So let's go up to the wave, but we don't want to have too much. We just want to have little drosses. There we go, look at that. And because we've got that yellow in the middle, and it all matches the heat, it looks fantastic. Now what I'm going to do, just to straighten her up, I'm just going to measure a nice straight horizon. I'm going to swap back to my flat brush. Just going to mix some orange and crimson. And again, more orange than anything, because it's near the sun, it's going to be very warm. Going to add a tiny bit of black to it, just a tiny bit, and I'm just going to go right up to the tape and create a nice straight horizon. And while I've got that dark tone, I'm going to just create a straight wave again, just in the middle. Just going to add a little bit darker tone to it as it comes towards the beach. It's getting a little bit darker in tone, so just by adding a little bit of Prussian blue or a little bit of black to the mix, a bit more crimson, you can just make that wave look a bit darker. It's still warm in tone because it's near the sun, that's why it's crimson and orange. And more orange as it goes towards the sun. So just add a little bit more orange as you move towards the sun. And that will trick again the viewer's eyes. You can do that trick here on the top of this one. So I'm just going to merge that and make that highlight look less harsh. And I'm just going to add more orange. Do the smear diagonal thing that I was teaching you earlier. Add a little bit of cad yellow just underneath the sun, just so it matches the sky. So all we're doing, look, we're trying to match the sky. So whatever we did in the sky, we're trying to match. We're going to remove the tape. We've got a lovely straight horizon. We're going to wipe out the chalk. That's the great thing about chalk. It leaves no dirty pencil marks. We're going to get some Prussian blue and some burnt umber. We're going to swap to a fine liner. And all we're going to do is just add a tiny bit of crimson just to warm it up. But predominantly Prussian blue, which is blue and black. And we're just going to outline our wave here just so it's not as sloppy. Just so it's got a clear shadow from the sea foam and all the wash as it hits into the beach. And we've got a nice lovely line. And while we've got that, we're just going to edge this and again make it look more realistic. You have a shadow underneath the sort of carpet bit that comes up onto the beach, and by just outlining it, it just makes it look more 3D. And because it's a very dark tone, it brings it forward and it makes it look like it's coming towards the viewer. Add a tiny bit of titanium white just to make our sun look more electric and vibrant, and she's finished. So I've signed her in the bottom left corner. We've got this lovely 2/3 sky and 1/3 it's the ocean and the beach. We've got this beautiful sunset. You've learned how to do a transition in the underpainting with the light. You've learned how to do the wave over the top, how to do the sunlight reflecting on the barrel part of the wave, it crashing down, how to do sea foam and create this super hyper realistic tutorial and acrylic painting of a beach sunset just from learning how to do tones. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you haven't checked out the previous video with the sunset, please do so. My name is Murray. Anyone has any problems or any questions, just put them in the comments below. But I really hope this has helped you. It's much more advanced, so please stick with it and take care. See you soon. Bye.